Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Change Your Mind podcast. I'm your host, Chris Ashley. I am so excited for my guest tonight. We're going to talk all about mindset, especially when it comes to women entrepreneurs running a business. But first, a couple of quick announcements before I introduce her. Check out the links in the show notes. You will find access to my book, Change Your Mind to Change Your Reality. It's been endorsed by 3 experts from the film The Secret, John Gray, who wrote Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, Anita Morjani. So go check it out. I've also got tons of free resources. I have a free workshop I do every couple of weeks. My courses are on there, my coaching. And then also this podcast is part of a podcast network owned by the Los Angeles Tribune. So check out everything we're doing in personal development. There's a lot of fun stuff coming down the pipeline. I'm so glad you're here. So, hi, I'm Chris. When I was younger, I went through trauma that caused me to feel broken and lost. But my life changed after I had a spiritual awakening. Since then, I've dedicated my life to studying and learning from masters all around the world that have helped me to create a life of fulfillment and abundance beyond my wildest dreams. Now I'm dedicated to sharing everything I've learned so that you don't have to suffer for decades like I did. I've seen people's lives completely transform, and I share it all right here. Let me introduce my guest today. I'm so excited. My guest is Erin Newman. Erin is a speaker, author, and mindset and soul alignment coach for women entrepreneurs. She helps business owners to overcome mindset blocks so that they can truly do what lights them up in their business and make the income they desire, because that's important too. Through a mixture of mindset and energetic healing tools, Erin helps people to finally vanquish the mind gremlins, follow their soul purpose, and create a new pathway to abundance, success, and joy. I can't wait to hear all about that. Welcome, Erin.
Thanks for having me, Chris. I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited for you too. So I like to start off all the shows by asking people the same thing, and that is, what is your origin story? What led you on this path? What made you want to help women entrepreneurs? What led to your own spiritual awakening? Because I think through hearing other people's stories, we can shift our perspective about our own.
For sure. Yeah. Wow, that's a lot of amazing questions. I don't know if my spiritual awakening was necessarily the same as my desire to help women entrepreneurs, but I mean, they were like parallel tracks, but I guess I started like everyone does in trying to heal myself first, right? I mean, I was raised with a sort of, there's never enough money, there's never enough to do the things you want to do sort of mentality. And in my 20s and 30s, the more I read, the more I started to realize that there were other people who thought differently than I did about money, and then thought differently than my family did about money. And that just led me, I mean, I think it was one of many entry points, but it just led me on this journey of personal healing and looking at all of my belief systems around money and income and how hard you have to work in order to have it, and all those things that we believe to be true. And through that process, at some point, I had stayed home after my second son was born, got really bored right away, and was helping other people do their social media. You know, I was doing some freelance writing for other coaches and therapists and people in the wellness space. And I kind of woke up one day and had been asking the universe, like, what is next for me? You know, I mean, it was fun, but it didn't feel like fully landed, you know, like I still had that feeling of like, what am I going to do when I grow up? You know? And, at some point in the midst of like a really deep meditation, I just had this insight of, oh my gosh, you can be a coach too. Like there's nothing holding you back from that. And so I went back to school, got a coaching certification, and through the middle of that coaching certification, started realizing that I really loved helping entrepreneurs. You know, I loved people who'd already stepped into their passion work. You know, I was like trying to help my life coaching program redesign their website. By the time I got out of it, I was like, you need more of this, and you need some more client testimonials. And, you know, through that process, just really realized these are my favorite people to help. You know, women entrepreneurs who are yeah, stepping into their passion, because I think that's such a unique space when somebody has already committed to and already decided that, hey, I'm going to step outside of the matrix and do this big thing that's scary and continually scary, right? Because each new level brings new places that we have to expand and look into our belief systems. And so, yeah, that was a long-winded answer, but there's a lot in there. Yeah.
No, it was a great answer. Thank you so much for sharing. And I'm curious, how were you able to shift your own mindset around money? Because I'm assuming there's a bit of a story there, right? Like when you're growing up being told there's never enough, you carry that belief with you, and I'm sure that affected how much money you were able to make. So as you were reading all these books and shifting your mindset, how were you able to do that? And then I guess two-part question, did you see huge financial shifts after changing your mindset?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I think there's, the things that we can do on the conscious level, the talking about it, the mindset kind of pieces, but really, and I know you do some of this work too, Chris, really doing it on a deeper level, on a subconscious level, on an energetic level, on a somatic level has been for me. And then of course that's what I do with clients too, but that's been the most powerful is I can say, here and now, of course there's more than enough money. Of course abundance belongs to all of us, but looking at where those beliefs were being held on my energetic level was the most impactful and absolutely is what helped to shift. And then, went on to have 6-figure years and all that in my business, but it's continual. I think everyone thinks like, oh, there's this great, arrival story sort of, and then you're there and then everything, the rainbows kind of come out of the clouds and whatever, that myth that there's going to be this point where it's all tied up neatly with a bow. And I haven't found that to be true. I wish that were true, but it feels like there's just this continual play with my belief systems. I had to do some this morning around just ways I want to restructure my business and this belief that, if I do that, I'm going to lose out. I'm going to lose money. I'm not going to make as much. And I think we're always playing with that. So for anybody who's like thinking they haven't gotten there yet with money, I think it's continual.
Yeah, and I love the vulnerability in you sharing that, because I think you're right. It's almost like progress isn't linear, right? It's this cycle, right? This spiral, and
Yeah.
you think, oh, I've made so much and I've conquered that belief and I'm doing so good, and then like the universe or life or whatever you want to say throws something at you and you're challenged all over again, right? And you have to go back and do that work again. So, what is it that you are noticing blocks most women entrepreneurs? Is there something specific that you see common in your practice?
I think on its deepest level, there is a belief that we all hold to varying degrees that we are not enough in some way. Mm. And so that gets expressed in our business in this way that says, I have to look outside of me in order to figure out how I need to run my business and how I need to show up in my business and how I need to structure my business and how I need to show up on Instagram and, all the things that we kind of look around and we're like, oh, well, she's doing it this way. So I have to kind of go fit myself into this box over there, instead of saying, no, the way I'm doing it is perfectly effing awesome. Like the way I'm doing it is perfectly aligned to creating that next level for myself. I don't have to go seek out this new way of doing things because I'm already enough just as I am. And of course, I think that has like many implications too, right? Especially for women. We're looking at things like body image and ageism and sexism. We're looking at all the things where, quote unquote, we don't measure up in some way. And so those get added in our business too, right? If you feel like you're not pretty enough to show up on camera, well, then you're not going to go show up on camera, right? So I think that deepest level of, not enoughness is and this is a spectrum, of course, but that shows up for all of us in some way, shape, or form. And so the symptoms of it, the way it plays itself out, might look slightly different for everybody. But I've yet to have a client who didn't have at least some of that, and that's, of course, one of our oldest fears, right? Is that we are not enough in some way to be loved. We want to be taken in, we want to be protected, we want to be part of the tribe, we want to be part of the group, and without that, we're an outcast, and nobody wants that. So I think as business owners, we're always playing with, how do I get to be fully me? How do I get to be fully authentic? And trust that that is what is going to create the abundance, versus, do I need to go look like somebody else, be like somebody else, create my funnel like somebody else in order to be accepted and loved and, attract abundance too. So
yeah, I think it's such a fine line with social media, right? Because it's so easy to have imposter syndrome. It's so easy to look at all of these other people who are doing it and who are successful, and to feel like you don't measure up, right?
mm-hmm.
But there's
Mm-hmm.
also that idea that, one of the best ways to forge forward is to find someone who's already walked that path, right? And to learn from what they've done along the way. So yeah, social media can be so harmful, but it can also be so helpful in those juxtaposing ways.
Right.
So how do you help women overcome that? How do you even start that journey of feeling like you're enough, or feeling like you can be your authentic self and do it your own way and forge that path and trust that it's going to work even if no one else is doing it that way?
Yeah. So I want to answer that on two levels. One is kind of to get back to what you said, Chris, about, there can be these people that we look up to that are mentors or coaches or, supporters. And I think the best of those are never saying to you, this is how I do it, follow my plan, step by step, it's going to work, here's your 5-step plan for success, right? They're saying to you, what feels good to you, what feels right to you in this. Yes, this is how I've created mine, but where do you land in all of that, right? And I think that our clients and the public in general is just becoming way more discerning around that. And they're looking for people who aren't giving them a cookie cutter version of success, right? On the one hand. And then on the other, I think, getting back to what I was saying earlier, like doing that work on the level of those subconscious beliefs is so powerful, because again, you and I sitting here, we can have this conversation like, of course you deserve it. Of course you're worthy of $1 million a year, and I believe that, right? You are, of course. And so am I. But does my body believe that? Right? I think if I checked in right now, my body would probably be like, no, we're not ready for that. Right? Because of all those beliefs that say, if I were to get to that, all of these things would have to be true about me then. Whatever I know my own, but like whatever my system of belief says, right? And there's usually some element of, if you're making that much money, you have to work really super hard. If you're making that much money, then your personal life has to fall apart, right? You have no more friends, and you're no longer a spiritual person, or whatever. There's so many of them, but really looking into, what is it that I believe to be true about that, and you can simply journal about that, and whatever income you're at now, if you think about a big jump in that income and just asking yourself, okay, well, why don't I deserve that right now? What would have to change for me to get to that space? And that's where all those beliefs are going to come up. They're going to say to you, you'd have to go, like for me, the one I always kind of joke about is like, oh, you'd have to go straighten your hair all the time. Like, I'm not willing to do that, so, and that's a silly one, but we have all these beliefs. We have this image of the person who is making that amount of income. And a lot of times that person doesn't look like us, and again, on lots of different levels, but it's something to play with. It's something to start looking at, because those are the beliefs that are actually holding you back from that next level of income, that next level of fun, health, anything in your life.
Yeah, totally. I love the hair example, because we've all had thoughts like that. Even me, I'm like, okay, I have to record a bunch of content, like got to get camera ready. Like these freaking guys come on here and they don't have to do that shit, but like we do.
Right.
It's so real. Especially I'm pregnant right now. I'm 8 months pregnant, and it's like, okay, like if I'm already feeling this way and I have like 4 outfits I can choose from, like at least I can make my hair look okay, right? But it's stupid. It's really stupid. And if someone, you know, authentically resonates with your message, they authentically resonate with your message, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think we wish that's true, right? But then it's also real that, you know, people respond to certain faces, you know, that stuff is real. That stuff is known. So it's not like it's just in our heads and we can just snap our fingers and say, okay, my ego doesn't matter anymore. And I'm just like, for me, I think I'm a little older than you. Like, I mean, I know I am, but like letting my hair grow gray, right? That's a conversation I keep having lately. Like, you know, it's going to age me. Is that worth it? Is that, how authentic do I want to be? You know, and I think for those of us that are out there on the interwebs, it's like it's a hard thing to look at.
It is. I was actually just watching a TikTok before this, which it's not super related, but it was from a woman who had just lost 140 pounds, and she was like, "It's crazy how different the world treats me." Right? Like even just people smiling at me or holding the door open, like things that we don't necessarily think about. So, you know, unfortunately, these things do come into play.
For sure.
But I want to go back to limiting beliefs. I was just doing a exercise with I do a weekly group coaching program, and it was similar to what you were saying, like to identify a limiting belief. I had them think about something that they want to be doing right now that they're not taking action on. And it's like, what are the reasons, right? What are the reasons you're not doing it? And there's some of your limiting beliefs. So you said a lot of it stems from the belief that we're not enough, that we're not worthy. Like, where do you see that coming from? Where does that come from? Childhood? Is that ingrained from our parents, from society? Like, where does that root?
Yes, all of the above. Maybe let's even throw in some ancestral energies, some past life energies. And the way I always approach all of that work is, look, you can be as skeptical as you want to. You don't have to believe in past life energies at all, right? But if it resonates, if it feels true, like you're feeling that in your body when we talk about it, or when we're doing deeper work around it, cool, let's play with it. You know, let's play with that. Whether that's an aspect of your psyche or it's an actual past life, I don't personally know. But let's play with this and see where this is coming from, because you know, I think we're all energy, right? So obviously what our society believes to be true is impacting us in some way. We were born into this time and place, I think, for a reason, and we were born with this society, right? With these people around us, with this kind of structure around us, which means it's impacting us. We weren't raised by wolves out in the jungle. We were raised, you know, with this society that's giving us these certain beliefs. And then of course our parents, I would say, you know, or primary caregivers, primarily a lot came from them. But then again, like, you know, the example I also give around this is my mother was raised really poor. My grandmother was raised during the Depression, also very, very poor, even more poor, you know, like outdoor outhouse, the whole, you know, that kind of thing. And so how could that not in some way impact me, right? Like, I mean, I always thought as a kid, like, oh, I'm my own independent being. And I think the older I get, the more I'm like, oh my gosh, how did we not know that all of this is playing into who we are today, right? And I think that science and epigenetics and everything is starting to really show us what the ancients have always known, which is you're not just this, you know, mushroom's not even a good example because they're all connected too, but like you're not just this thing that sprouted out of nowhere and, you know, with no connection to anybody. No, you are the product of, you know, 250,000 years of ancestors who thought a certain way in order to keep you safe, right? Because otherwise you would have died. And so you're that product. You're the product of all those years of people trying to stay safe, to stay part of the tribe, to survive, right? And so our modern brains, for many of us, don't have to be focused so much on survival, but our bodies are still feeling that way, right? And so if we in some way try to break out of the tribe, if we try to do something different, our bodies are going to say to us, that's not safe. That's not okay. You have to conform. You have to be like everybody else. Because again, if you're ostracized, that equaled death.
Yeah.
Previously and still does to our bodies. So our bodies are like, nope, stay in the box, right? Like stay in this little conforming box. And we know what that box is for our society, right? We know what it is. It's like go to school, get the good grades, get the good job, right? Work there until you retire or whatever. Like we have that model. And so again, those of us that are trying to break out of it, it's like, your body's going to be continually like, whoa, what are we doing? This is different. So
yeah, absolutely. Because we are animals. And it's so interesting because there's so many ways we can look at ourselves, right? Like, I believe that we are souls incarnated here and we have come to learn specific lessons in this lifetime, and Earth is a school. And like you said, we're born into these circumstances because they are what will allow us to grow and learn those lessons, right? But on the other hand, we're also plugged into these families, right? So it makes so much sense that your grandmother who went through the Great Depression, her opinions and her belief systems and her perspective affected your mother. And then, but before the age of 7, where kids are in theta brainwaves, right? So they're in hypnosis. So it's like the opinions of the adults they grew up around are just programming them. So hearing your mother talk about lack and how there's never enough money, that gets programmed into you.
Yep.
And then there's that other aspect, like you were saying, like we really are animals at heart and we don't want to be separated from the herd because that's where danger is, right? There's safety in conformity. So there's so many levels at play, and it's so fascinating to think about it all. And then you add in the past lives, and that's just like a whole other layer, right?
It can be. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it was interesting. So I went on a 7-year infertility journey and I did a past life regression. I'm such a big Dolores Cannon fan, so I got a QHH.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I love her work. But I learned that like lifetimes ago, I was this man and his son was sent to war against his will. And when they brought back his son's dead body, he made this vow that he was never going to have children again. And then for like many, many, many lives after that, I never had children again because there was this vow made and I had to like go break. It was this crazy thing, but I was able to get pregnant after that. So it's so fascinating.
It is. And, again, who knows how that all works, right? But it worked. So
yeah, it's crazy.
Awesome.
Okay, so I want you to talk to me more about doing the work on the subconscious level. Like how do we truly change a limiting belief on that level?
Yeah. I'm just
sum it up really simply. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, really simple. Yeah, it's funny because this is not exactly what you asked, but people have asked me before, like, how long does it take? And I feel like the answer is one session, but also a lifetime. I love to look at. I always think of it kind of like a funnel, basically, where we come in with the symptoms. I'm not making enough in my business, or I'm having inconsistent income, or I can't raise my prices, or, whatever you're coming in with as sort of like the upper level of that funnel. And then moving down into, okay, well, what else is coming up around that? Feelings, emotions, thoughts, and then funneling way down into that earliest memory that people can find. And sometimes I do this with hypnosis, and we can also do it with tapping, but looking into that earliest memory that somebody can find that's associated with that belief that says, you have to work really hard to make money, or it's not safe for me to make money, or I'm not allowed to be wealthy, or I'm not deserving. And looking at where we first heard that. And again, that can sometimes be a past life, but usually we just start with earliest childhood memory, and then disassociating that memory from the belief. So you still know that the thing happened, right? It's not like you totally forget that this thing happened, but disassociating it in those neuro pathways so that the next time something happens in your business, or the next time somebody says no, or the next time you don't make the sale or whatever, it's not continuing to make that sort of etched groove in your mind that says, well, I'm not worthy and deserving of having any money at all. Or, I'm not allowed to do this without working myself to the bone, whatever belief system you created. That's how I like to do it. I think there's, probably an infinite number of ways. I would say that it's really, really helpful when we can drop into theta in some way, shape, or form, again, either with hypnosis or tapping. I think people get into a meditative state with tapping also, or at least I like them to be in there, so that we can work on it from that space, and I like anything that bypasses the conscious mind, because our conscious mind is going to create all these stories and I mean, you probably know this too, Chris, like you can have a client where they just want to talk and talk about the thing versus like, okay, let's drop below all the talking about it and like actually shift it and not let your conscious mind do its normal thing, not let it create all the stories around whatever it is we're working around, right? But really look into what is that belief that I believe to be true, and then where did that come from so we can shift it. So
yeah, I think that's such a great explanation, and especially such a great explanation of the conscious mind versus the subconscious mind, right? Where on the conscious level, we're just making up all of these stories around it, and then we're living our life by these stories. And really, it's just a bunch of stuff that we're making up because of fear or because of those feelings of unworthiness. So is there always one core memory that these limiting beliefs can be tied back to that you found?
No, sometimes it can be sort of a daisy chain of memories, if you will, like a bunch of associated memories that are kind of similar. And sometimes people will tell me I don't have a memory at all around that. And in that case, I just say, okay, well then just imagine it, right? Imagine that memory. Because it still gives us that same power. It still gives us enough of the juice to do the work. Because it probably happened that way, like if they're imagining that way, it probably happened that way anyway. They created it at such a young age that it's hard sometimes to drop into that, but
yeah, I was wondering about that myself too, just trying to, as you're talking, trying to think about like my own blocks and trace it back to a memory. Although it's hard to do that on a conscious level sometimes, right? Sometimes you need to go.
It is. Yeah, totally. Yeah. And you can, I mean, I was about to say you can do this yourself. You can do this yourself. And it's kind of like a massage, right? Like it's easier for somebody else to hit those points than it is for you. But sometimes I'll just take things into a really, really deep meditation and be like, okay, source, can you heal this for me? Because I can't deal with this for you now. Like I need some help. And yeah, that works too. But also sometimes you do need help. So yeah.
Totally. It's like the answers are all within you, but there's a reason that we go to people who have been trained, right? Because they know the right questions to ask and how to lead us down that path and how to make sure that we're feeling safe while we do it.
Yeah.
So do you, oh, I almost fell. Do you always work with clients to replace that limiting belief with a more empowering one? Or do you just kind of like root out that limiting belief and then something else just kind of naturally fills it?
I would not use the word always replace it, but I would say I try to. Yeah, I'm just thinking if we're doing it through tapping, we always end on the positive. Yeah, and I guess I do it through hypnosis that way too. Yeah, because I have them come back. Yeah. Okay, I was just thinking through my own process there. Yes, we do. We always replace it with something. In hypnosis, I usually do it more like a vision versus an actual belief. But tapping is, yeah, we come up with new beliefs that feel good for them.
When do you use tapping versus hypnosis with clients?
That is a really great question. I will usually start with tapping to get people in their bodies, especially if they're discombobulated from something else, or just, you have clients that don't drop into their bodies very well at all, right? Like some people, you can just drop them straight into a meditation. You can drop them straight into hypnosis. Like they're super ready for that. But I have some clients who, you just get that sense like tapping is really going to help them to drop in first. So we'll do some tapping first. And if that leads into the healing process, great. I would say generally speaking, I start with tapping, just to get everybody's nervous system settled, and we can do, tapping was my MO for years, just tapping, before I even introduced the hypnosis work. So I feel like you can really do some amazing work in tapping. And then the hypnosis is kind of like a cherry on top for me.
Yeah. So I had someone on the show recently who took me through a little tapping session, and it was really lovely, but I don't know that much about it. So do you always kind of follow a specific pattern with the body, a specific script, or is it like an intuitive thing where you change it up for each person?
Yeah. So that's a great question. I follow the same tapping pattern in terms of like the points that we're tapping on. I add in a couple that some people don't use. Like I do one on your wrist that I really love. And so that always stays the same. The script changes every single time, and with every single group, every single person, every single thing we're working on, because I'm eliciting feedback from either the person or the group. Like I just did this with my membership just a couple hours ago. And so we'll do a round or two of tapping and then kind of check in and see where everybody is, and see if that intensity level has decreased, which hopefully it has. And check in with things that are coming up for them, because sometimes it'll spark like a very specific, sort of like a side belief, right? If for lack of a better word, I'm sure there's a better word than that, but it'll spark this sort of ancillary thought or beliefs that comes up as we do the first round of tapping. And so I want to bring that back in, and like I said, really check in, because there are times when you're working with a belief system and you think that that's the thing, me as the practitioner, them as the client, you think that that's the thing. And then you get in there and it's like, whoa, there's this whole other thing that you haven't shared. I mean, that's up to them, right? That they haven't shared, but that's really the thing, right? And so it leads us there eventually.
Well, that probably speaks to the idea that like on a conscious level, we might not even be aware of the really deep rooted thing, right? And we have to like go to that place to be able to 100%. Even remember it again, right? Figure it out.
Yeah. And I'm sure everybody's had that experience, right? Like you're, even on a massage table or something, they hit some kind of trigger point and it brings up a memory that you're like, God, I haven't thought of that in years. But like that pain in your body is associated with a memory somehow. So
that's interesting that you do it in a group setting. How is that? Because it'll bring up different things for different people, right?
Yeah. I love it. I love group energy in general. I love doing tapping in a group. Do I love it more than one-on-one? I don't know. That's hard to say, but it's cool because you get the energy of the group, right? You get to normalize things that people don't normally normalize, that they think are just theirs, right? All those beliefs and thoughts that they think belong to just them. And literally in the membership just now, the whole chat was blowing up with like, yeah, me too. Yeah, me too. So it's things that I'm sure that person thought was just them, and so that's really cool in a group. But then also, what I share in a group is like, if something I say doesn't resonate for you, then you say the thing that resonates the most for you. So I change it slightly when I'm doing it with a group, where I do kind of more fill in the blankish. Like we were tapping on, being wealthy means what? What does that mean for you? Like that you can no longer be spiritual, or you can no longer be compassionate, and I was encouraging them, like, use your own word here. You want to use the words that resonate for you. So there's more sort of fill in the blankishness, I would say, when I do it with a group than when I do it with a one-on-one. And one-on-one, especially as you start to get to know that client really well, like you kind of know their phrases and their words that really trigger them.
Yeah.
And you can work with those. But yeah, I would say that that's kind of the difference when I do it with a group, is there's a slightly more open space for them to kind of use their own words.
Makes sense. The only time I've ever, I don't even know if I would call it like tapping, but then tapping is, so I'm a yoga teacher. I also own a yoga studio, and the woman who I did my 500-hour training with, she's phenomenal. She's out of New York, but she's an acupuncturist, and she's also an incredible yogi practitioner. And she developed this method of yoga that just aligns with all of the Chinese acupressure points.
That's so cool.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Her company is Science of Self, if anyone wants to look it up. But at the beginning of, she has I think it's like a 2.5-hour practice that she's kind of coined as her master class. We would do it every day, but at the beginning of that, we would tap on all these pressure points, but there wouldn't be like speaking along with it. It would just be like, we're tapping on like this one and then this one, and like going down each of the meridian channels.
Yeah.
And that was just so powerful to do that before like really getting into our bodies and moving. So that's like, and I don't even know if that would even be considered like EFT tapping officially, but it was really powerful.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know, just a side note on this.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know the answer to that too. I don't know how narrowly they define EFT tapping. But yeah, I love that, and there's so much power to all of that somatic processing, shaking or dancing or grounding or any of it. It's do it all, right? Like it's all awesome. It's all amazing for shifting, and I think it's kind of part of why modern society is so messed up, is we don't do those body focused things anymore. We're not in touch with our bodies. We're not in touch with Mother Earth, and it shows, right?
Yeah, so. Absolutely. Okay. So I want to shift the conversation over a little bit more to mindset and business specifically.
Sure.
That's what you really specialize in, now that we've kind of gotten like the background of it. So I guess my first question is, we've been talking about limiting beliefs. Do all people or all entrepreneurs who are struggling financially with their business, does that all come from a limiting belief, do you think?
Oh, controversy. I would.
Hey, that's what makes a good podcast, right?
I would say yes, because here's the deal. Like, all the marketers out there are going to be like, no, there's strategy. Yeah, totally. There's strategy, of course. But again, kind of coming back to that mentorship aspect, you could have the greatest mentor in the world telling you, this is how I did it. Go out and do it the same thing. And I have hired those people, right? I have paid the big mentors. And you get halfway through. Well, shit, I didn't even get halfway through. You get a month in and you're like, oh my God, I can't work the way they work, right? Like, that's not for me. I can't do this. And it might have been great advice, and it probably was. But if my mindset is one of, I can't do this, which it was, I wasn't never going to have the level of success that they had doing it the way that they did it, And so the mindset always has to come first, right? The belief that you can do it, that you're deserving of it, that you're allowed to, that you're safe to, blah, 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 whatever, always has to come first. I was actually thinking about this earlier. Like, we could all right now go out on our websites and update our pricing to be $1 million, right? Like it's $1 million to work with me for 6 months or whatever. We could all do that, right? I mean, it would take, hopefully we all know how to work the back end of our websites, and we can update the pricing really quickly, right? 10 minutes, let's say. Okay, it'll take you 10 minutes to update your website. You are not going to sell $1 million program if you don't believe it's possible for you, right? And even if you're on Instagram every single day, if you don't have the mindset that, yes, I'm worthy and deserving of having new sales, I'm worthy and deserving of having new clients, I'm worthy and deserving of charging this pricing, or, whatever's happening in your business, it's not going to matter. It's not going to show up for you. You know, you can be saying all the words and everything your copywriter wrote for you, but again, I know this from personal experience, and most of us probably do, is that you can have all that stuff in place and it can still not work. And that is mindset, right? It's mindset and energy. That's you saying, yes, I deserve this. It's you saying, knowing it on a really deep level that you're allowed to run your business this way and have it still create the results. And so if you believe that there's something lacking, that there's something either lacking in you or lacking in your marketing or lacking in your sales process or whatever, and that you have to go out there and find it first, then you're not going to make the sales you want. Then you're not going to make the money you want. So again, I think it's always mindset, right? And that's not a, like we were saying in the beginning, that's not a, like, I snap my fingers, it's done, it's over. I'm all perfect on my mindset now. I never have to think about it again. It's continual for sure. But if you have the right mindset, then all of those logistic things follow from that, right? If you say to yourself, yeah, I'm worthy of this. Yeah, I'm deserving of this. Then you'll figure out the right words. Then you'll figure out how to set up a website or pay somebody else for it or whatever. But like without that, none of the rest of it matters.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you. And I think that that's so important. So for listeners right now, anyone who is feeling stuck, who's, doing all the right things on paper with their marketing, with their sales, with, whatever funnels they have, whatever webinars they have, and it's still not working, then maybe we need to look at the mindset piece. And I think that that's hard for people sometimes when they don't feel like they have a limiting belief, right? When they're like, there's nothing consciously coming up. Like, yeah, I feel like I'm deserving, but I'm feeling stuck, and that's frustrating. So, maybe it is worth exploring with an expert who can guide you through that, right?
Yeah. Or again, if you don't think you have a limiting belief, like picture that person who's successful. Does it look like you? Just check in. Are they acting like you? Are they being like you? Because again, probably not. Probably there's a disconnect between who you believe that person has to be and who you are right now. Because the version of you who's you right now should be able to have the $1 million business, right? Like you don't need to change in order to have that $1 million business. And again, we all know this on a conscious level, but right, like when I picture her, she still has freaking straight hair. So like clearly I don't believe it, right? So one of those things has to change.
Yeah, and like you could even like, if you want to really get crazy with it, you could even be like, what if Oprah was in my position? Or what if, Alex Hormozi, or what if Mark Cuban, or whatever successful person you can think of, like, what would they be thinking right now?
100%. 100%. Yeah. Yep. That's such a great tool. I don't even know. Is that NLP? Where you step into that version. I actually personally don't love stepping into somebody else. I love stepping into like the most confident version of myself, like the badass Erin, and then seeing what she would do. But I think that works for a lot of people, is like, yeah, okay, if I were really Oprah, what would I do?
I think it's a good tool for realizing that your limiting beliefs are just beliefs. Like one of my favorite things, and I say this in my book, one of my favorite things to tell people is, if you look up the word belief in the thesaurus, one of the antonyms for it is truth. And that just blows people's mind, because belief is the opposite of truth. And if you think about it, your beliefs are just like fallacies or opinions or even like lies you tell yourself, right? They're not founded in truth. And if you could do anything to just like shake that up and be like, oh wait, this isn't grounded in truth, then it starts to break that down a little bit, right?
Yeah. It's like when you see just a little bit of light around them, a little bit of space around them, then you can start to understand these are just thoughts. They're not true. Like, and I think it's true in so many aspects of our lives, right? Like, cause you'll hear friends say really, in my opinion, crazy things about like the dating scene or, health or anything, right? They'll say this thing and I'm like, that doesn't have to be true, right? Like you're just creating that. Like, not all the good men are taken. There's still some out there. I'm sure there are, Not that I'm looking, but, right. Like, and it's like, you can just see how that plays out in their world, but it's harder for us, of course, to see it in our own world, right? We can easily see it for somebody else, but looking at your own business, you're like, oh no, that's absolutely true. That's not a limiting belief. So
It's so much easier in every aspect when there's a objective third party that can be like, wait, I see so clearly what's happening here. And you're like, even in like methodologies for business, it's like, wait, have you even thought of this angle or this path?
Totally.
And it's just like, wow, that never occurred to me. So
Totally.
working with a coach or a mentor is just priceless.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah. And working with one that you feel super safe around too, because, I think, again, at this point, most of us have had that experience of like somebody kind of telling you their version of it, and that feeling of like, well, that's never going to work for me. That's never going to fit with me. I know that right now. And yeah, I think we all have, well, I shouldn't say everyone, but I feel like a lot of us have crossed that Rubicon and said like, no more, I'm not going to do it that way anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. I like working with, I have like a straight up business coach who's just business coach. I mean, he has like a great mindset about it, but it's like, here's how you build funnels. Here's how you build webinars. Here's how and he's made 7 figures doing it. And it's like, I love that, but I also need the other side of it too. So I also see other people who can help with the more, I don't know, the more nervous system, mindset, all of that, the mental side of it.
Totally.
So
Totally.
you kind of answered this, but I want to just ask you outright, what is the mindset needed to run a business? Like, or even like, what is the mindset needed to sell $1 million coaching program? Like you were, to use your own example.
Oh, well, I wish I knew the answer to that part, but it's, I can do this, right? It's, I deserve this. I'm allowed to do this. Why not me? I can figure this out, right? Like Marie Forleo says, I think everything is figure outable. Like, I have this belief that when people say like, well, I can't figure out the tech or I can't figure out the logistics behind that, to me, that is always just a smoke screen for the deeper stuff, right? Because if you're like, yeah, I got this, I can do this, I figured out a bunch of other stuff in my life, I can do this too. I mean, then you go Google a thing and you figure it out. Or again, you pay somebody, right? You find somebody on Fiverr to do it for you. But it all stems from that mindset of, yeah, I can do this. I'm just as deserving as anybody else. I'm just as smart as everybody else. I'm just as personable, whatever your version of that is. But yeah, the things that hold us back from that are our own versions of all those reasons that you were maybe just listing in your head of, well, I can't, that's the $1 million business is a great example, right? Or $1 million program, such a great example because it really will pull up all of those versions of, well, that's not for me, cool. That's great for them to talk about. Cool. That's great for them because they're blah, 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 whatever. I can't do that. I have 2 little kids at home, or I have 10 little kids at home, or whatever, like whatever's coming up right there is the belief, and that's the thing you want to look at. Whatever you listener maybe just told yourself about, like, yeah, but blank, 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 blank. Those are the beliefs, those are the beliefs that hold us all back. And I mean, again, I know what mine are, but you want to look into them for yourself and see what's there. What's on the other side of that but?
Totally. And I feel sometimes they show up as excuses or fears, right? It might not be like, I can't do this. It might be like, I don't have enough time. Yep. Something like that, right? Where it's like, or I don't have enough capital to get started. Where it's still a limiting belief under there, but it's being sneaky and showing up as an excuse.
Yes, totally. And it's showing up as an excuse that a lot of our society buys into, right? Like the capital one that you just said, I hear from, actually, I don't hear this usually, I see it on Facebook, but somebody will say like, oh, well, I just need an investor first. And I'm like, that is not how it works. There's no investor in the world who's giving money out to untried businesses, untried business people, right? Like you go out there, you earn your first $1, you earn your first 1,000, you earn your first 100,000, and then they'll think about investing in you. So it's it's such a myth that we have in our society of like, well, I need the capital first. I need the investment first. Like, no, start small, start doing it from your basement before you can expect somebody to invest in it. I mean, my dad was telling me the story about his Starbucks barista that he always sees, and she wants to open a dance studio, and she was looking at all these like $40,000 square foot spaces and these really fancy, buildings and stuff. And I was like, she needs to start with like a church basement, get her first few clients, right? You start from there. You start from where you are. You start from right here, right now, not, oh, I got to wait for the big investor to come in, because that's never going to freaking happen.
That's such a good point. So do you think there's value in starting with your prices low at a place where like you feel comfortable? You're like, I'm worthy of charging this, even if like we know you're worthy of charging way more, because then as you get those clients and start to make that money, you start to build up your confidence.
100%. And pricing is so subjective, right? And it has to feel good to you, because otherwise you won't sell it. Just like I said, the $1 million thing, we can all go try and change our websites right now. I'm never going to sell a $1 million program until I really feel like my worth is there. Right. And so, yeah, absolutely. Start in that space where you're not going to feel resentful of if that person actually signs up. But also, you're not going to feel so scared to name that price if someone asks you what your pricing is. Like if you're stumbling over your pricing, or you forgetting is one of my favorites too. If you forget what your pricing is, that's a warning sign. You should be able to say your pricing and just put a period at the end of it. Like, boop, done. Mic drop, let the person speak after that. Right. And so if you don't feel like you can do that, your pricing may be too high.
And I like that you said that, like, that you're not resentful. Talk a little bit more about that.
Well, I think if you're a brand new business owner, you might not have any idea what I'm talking about. And you're going to be like, I just want clients. Great. Go out and get a bunch of clients at that really low price and then see how you feel. Let us know. But if you've had more than one or two clients.
You have the really needy ones, right?
Yes. But so short side note, I started out life coaching business. I was charging $50 an hour, and it was never an hour. Those people would be at my house for like 3 hours. I'd get paid my $50 and I'd be so exhausted afterwards. And exhaustion is maybe another clue for that resentment feeling. Like if you feel totally exhausted after that client session, like either that's not an ideal client, or most likely, especially if you're still just starting out, the price is too low. And again, you'll take a couple of those clients and be like, oh my God, I can't believe I just did all of that work for X, right? And you'll know, okay, next client, I need to raise my rates, right? And yes, you get to do that even if you've only had 2 clients, right? If you're feeling that resentment feeling, go ahead and raise your prices. Just let them know my prices are now X, right? Unless you've contracted with them for something else. But again, most of the time, these are not like the huge deals that we think they are, like we think it's this whole huge deal to go raise our prices, and it probably just takes 10 minutes, even if you have to send a 10-minute email, like, hey, my prices have gone up, here it is. But it's all that inner stuff of like, well, now they're going to think I'm, a bitch. Now they're going to think I am selfish. Now they're going to think I charge too much, right? All that stuff that comes up around it.
Yeah, it's such a hard thing, especially like when you're trying to sell to people too, and they're like, oh, I just don't have the money right now, or oh, like I just lost my job and I can't do it, or why? Oh, my favorite is, if you're here to help people, why are you even charging? Shouldn't you do it for free? I want to be like, do your doctors do it for free?
I think you should say that. I haven't heard that one in a long time. So I think
that's more like an internet troll one that I hear.
Yeah, that's more like, yes.
More than like, I don't think people say that I don't think I've ever had anyone say that to my face, but
yeah. Yes, internet trolls, but they're internet trolls for a reason, right? Like they're not going out and paying for their own self-development work. So yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So is there anything we didn't touch on that you really want to leave people with that you feel is really important to get out there?
I think it's just this really interesting paradox. I just wrote an email on this that you were kind of alluding to earlier, which is we don't need other people to help us, right? We don't need another coach. We don't need another mentor. We don't need another healer. But also, I would say that everyone out there who you think of as successful has coaches, has mentors, has healers around them. They get supported on all levels. And it's just like, I'm going to use the health analogy. Like if you were like, okay, I really want to change my body this year. I really want to, I mean, unfortunately for many of us, it's get thinner, right? I want to get thinner this year. Great. You probably tried that in the past on your own. But if you went out and got the people to support you, think about how that would change your health. Think about how that would change your results. You know, if you had a personal chef, if you had, you know, a personal trainer, right, on standby. And it's the same thing in your business. Yeah, you can do this all yourself, but every single person you see who is successful out there is getting support because it's hard to do it on your own. It's really hard. And to me, that's kind of like the paradox of, sorry, dog, of being a coach and a healer, which is I don't want anyone to need me. I don't want my clients to be needy, but also this is really supportive. This work is really supportive to people, you know, and I'm including what you do here, Chris. It helps, right? You get to move faster. You get to see what you want to see in your world faster. And that's why we do the work we do.
Absolutely. And, you know, I always say that I do free workshops, you know, every few weeks. And I always say that it's like, if you could have done it on your own, you would have, you know, like there's a reason you're here right now because you need the support, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. And I think it's such an important point. It's like you laugh, but like, it's also so true, right? Like if you're like, people show up because they care about their personal development, their personal growth. Right.
Mm-hmm.
They want to be a better partner, a better person, a better parent, you know, they want to do more and have more impact on the world, and they're feeling stuck. And it's like, if they could do that on their own, they would have like gone out and done it. Right. So there's a reason that people listen to this kind of free content. Right. And then it's just then taking the next step towards helping yourself.
Yeah.
Right. It's showing up for yourself, and it's the best form of self-care there is.
Right. And, you know, and I'm saying this to myself too, but it's continual. It's right. It's that continual investment in the self. And it's that continual investment in, what's going to help make me a better person. And for me, a large part of that is through my business, right? This expression of self as a business owner is a spiritual journey. There's no way you grow as a business owner without hitting all these spiritual bumps in the road. You know, who am I? How am I going to show up? How am I going to show up authentically? Am I going to dye my hair or not? You know, all those things, like they take you down some deep pathways. And so, we have to get continual support around that if we want to grow, I think.
Yeah. And I love what you said earlier too, about how all of these big people that we look up to on social media or in the business world, like they all have business coaches. They all have mentors. They probably paid, you know, tens of thousands of dollars, if not more, on all of these. Like I would never want to work with a coach who doesn't have a coach. Yep. Right. I would never want to, you know, work with anyone who doesn't have a mentor, right? Because it shows me that they're constantly learning, they're constantly growing. They care about the personal development. They're walking the path, right? They're not just like saying the things.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Being in integrity, right?
Yeah. All right. So I can't believe an hour went by. It always goes by so fast. Thank you so much for coming on. Please share with listeners how they can get in touch with you, what your programs are, all the things you want to share.
Awesome. How did this go by so fast? You can find me on erinnewman.com. I am Erin Newman Coach on Instagram. My most accessible offering is a $37 per month membership with me called the Joy Collective, which is awesome. We do hypnosis, we do tapping. We're going to get into the really deeper stuff. And there's a lot of amazing content already stored there. So as soon as you jump in, you can binge a bunch of healing stuff. It'll be an amazing weekend project. But yeah, like, for instance, today's was on healing money blocks, and we were looking at that belief around making money has to be hard, and literally got off the Zoom call and had one of the women message me very quickly afterwards to be like, I just got a $50 bonus from, I don't even know where, blah, blah, blah. Like, it works. I'm like, I know it works. Yeah. So yeah, that's the work we're doing in the Joy Collective. And like I said, it's the most accessible way to work together. And then, yeah, you can find that all on my website, erinnewman.com. And I would love to be in connection with you guys.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that. And that's such a good deal. Speaking of pricing, $37 a month.
It's crazy. It's crazy. It may not last because I keep being like, this is crazy. So yeah.
Yeah, jump on it, everyone. And the links are going to be in the show notes too, if you're in a position where you can't write that down right now. So thank you so much, Erin. It was so great to have you. Listeners, please like, subscribe, share, help spread the good word. Let's help rise the consciousness of humanity, of the planet. Thank you all so much. Have a beautiful rest of your day.